You see, these are the three processes by which we learn. So the more you learn about the process of deletion, distortion, and generalization, the more you come to recognize it in your own thinking and in the things you do, the more you will be able to take control of your life, take control of your communications, take control of your relationships, achieve the things you want to, and learn rapidly.
Is this a course that's good for people who procrastinate?
Certainly. One of the things that we teach on the NLP practitioner certification is the technique called chaining anchors, which allows you to take a state which is a stuck state, such as procrastination, and chain it all the way through to another state, such as motivation. So that as soon as an individual starts procrastinating, they immediately feel the spur of motivation, and they're motivated to go off and do whatever it is that they were previously procrastinating about. So it's very, very powerful for procrastination. So let's say we were studying a certain subject. Can be anything, really. Could be in a business context, could be in an academic context, could be just a hobby, really anything you can imagine. So, for example, it's as true for salsa dancing as it is for studying law or languages or anything else. And the first one of these processes that you'd apply would be deletion. And the reason is a simple one. That otherwise there'd simply be way too much information for you to process. So in order to be able to deal with the world and the vast amount of information, you simply delete most of it. Let me ask you a question. What's the sensation you're currently experiencing in your left arm? My guess is that most of you weren't even aware of the sensation in your left arm until I mentioned it, because it wasn't relevant to your ongoing experience. So you simply delete it. You delete that portion of your experience which isn't relevant. Other things that aren't relevant are the color of the ceiling, the smell of the plants next door, the feeling of your hair on your head. They're not relevant, so they're deleted. But, and this is a big but, all of these processes happen unconsciously. Deletion's an unconscious process. So you're not aware that it's happening. And more than that, you're not aware of what's being deleted. But putting that to one side for a moment, once the process of deletion has occurred, whatever remains of the perceptions you have get passed on to the other two filters. Maybe we can look at generalizations next. So the process of generalization is where you take one or a few specific examples and you make them into a class or a rule. So an example of that would be all BMW cars are good cars. Does anyone here agree that all BMW cars are good cars? No. The question to ask yourself is not, is it true? The question to ask is that generalization useful? Because, now, I studied philosophy for 6 years at St. Andrews University, and I know that some of my lecturers would be horrified to hear what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. The truth is completely irrelevant. The only question you should be asking yourself is it useful? So useful generalizations are the ones that allow us to learn. They're the ones that allow us to operate in the world without restricting our freedom or causing us to make bad choices in relationships and those kind of areas. In learning, a useful generalization might be, in Spanish, all words are pronounced the way that they're spelled. Now, do you think that that would be a useful generalization? Exactly. It's not completely true, but a very high proportion of words are spelled that way in Spanish. So if you do learn the pronunciation rules of the language, and you learn the spelling of a Spanish word, you can more or less pronounce it. English, on the other hand, doesn't have that. So if anyone's learned English as a second language, they'll probably be able to vouch how useful it would be to have that kind of a generalization for English. But of course it doesn't work. Which explains why we have so many poor spellers in English. Then we have distortion. Distortion is where you take something and turn it into something that it's not. So, in the example of learning a language, in order to learn a foreign language, you need to be able to map it onto your mother tongue. You need to be able to do that translation. And the process you use to do that is distortion. So sticking with Spanish, the word tortilla exists in Spanish, and it's come to exist in English as well. But the meaning's very different. So in Spanish, the word tortilla has the same meaning as the word omelette in English. And in order to translate it correctly, you need to be able to do that distortion. Or another one from the French language, because I'm actually not sure if this is true in Spanish or not. But when you say next Wednesday in French, if that happens to fall in, if the next Wednesday is in this week, then it's the same as this Wednesday in English. And if it's in the following week, it's the same as next Wednesday in English. So to be able to do that translation, you need to be able to do that distortion.